PowerPoint to see if we can get, oh, there we go. We're up and ready. Okay. Okay. Welcome, everyone, to Kaysville City Council. Today is Thursday, March 5th, 2026. We're glad to have you here. Thank you for joining us. Our opening will be presented by Councilmember Mike Blackham, who will then lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Okay, so kind of going to ramble, but I get to because it's my turn. So kind of what I wanted to talk about tonight was the elected officials and things that we expect or what we want to believe that our vote counts. You always hear that word, every vote counts. And so when you have a municipal election, you sign up for it, and there's a primary and then a general election, and every vote does pretty much count. But as you watch the legislature down there, which they have 2 more days, today and tomorrow, and they'll finish at midnight tomorrow night, and that's as long as they can go. But in order to get some of these higher positions like county commissioner, and in this case, one of my colleagues here is running for county commissioner, and our good mayor here is running for state senator. Now, that process is a little different. You have to go through convention. And when you're a Republican in Utah, if you can get your name on the ballot, pretty much, you're pretty good chance you're going to win the election. But in order to make it, to get your name on that, there's only 2 ways you can do it. You got to go through convention, or you got to get signatures. And I know the passion of these 2 people right here, and I know how much it means to them if they're choosing to run for those offices, to be able to have every advantage they can to get to those offices. And if you go convention only, then it's based on delegates. And I believe for the senator, there's about 300 delegates. And for county commissioner, it's 800 delegates. Well, if you take 190,000 registered voters in Davis County and you leave the decision up to just 800 delegates, and it might be a snowy day, you might get 400 delegates up there, then does your vote really count? If you're so one of the things I want to tell you is, when your neighborhood caucus comes, or your caucus comes, then go to it and get elected as a delegate and go to convention. That is one way that your voice can really be heard. But in the case where you may not make it through there, I want to make, and I'm so glad they're doing it this way, because if for some reason, and I hope that they make it through convention with the signatures, but if they didn't, the fact that I know that that they have enough passion for that position, and believe me, when you have somebody like Tammy who's been a planning commissioner, a city council, a mayor, that's who I want for my state senator, because they know how the government works. And when they get down there to the Capitol and they're making these crazy laws that affect us as cities, you want to have somebody in there who you feel like you can talk to and will vote and understands what you're doing. So to do that, it's so important to me that they get their names on the ballot. And if that means they have to do it by collecting signatures, then I think that is an awesome way for them to do it. I don't have anything wrong with the convention and how they do things, but on the other hand, like I said, I hope they make it through convention, I hope whatever, but I know, and John over here, when he takes something on, he goes all in, full ahead, full stream ahead, so the thing I want to say is, if you want your vote to be heard, you've got to get behind these people who are willing to say, I'm going to go convention, I'm going to go signatures. It's not easy to get signatures, and they get the signatures. But the most important thing is they get their name on the ballot, so that when that Republican primary comes up, you as voters, as registered voters, because not everybody's going to be a delegate at the caucus, and if you think about it, to get a commissioner on the ballot through caucus, is like 0.004% of the registered voters. Now, that's great if they do it, but on the primary, when I see John Adams's name on there, whether they're with somebody else's, I want to know that my vote is going to count. And I feel like it does if I can vote individually with their name on there as a registered Republican voter in Davis County. So I just wanted to talk a little bit about that, and I want to thank them for the route they're going. It's not always the popular route with the Republican Party, especially the conservative Republicans. It's probably not their favorite route. But for me, as a registered Republican voter, knowing these people and how passionate they are, and they understand that it takes maybe 2 ways to get their name to that ballot, and for more people to understand that it's hard to get there if you don't get your signatures. To go through convention sometimes is really tough, but it's such a limited number. And I kind of keep repeating myself, but the point I'm trying to make is I'm grateful they're doing what they're doing. These are really good people. I understand why they do it, and as a voter, I'm glad they chose to go that way, and anybody else who does do that, because it gives the individual registered voters the opportunity to vote for the person, and I really appreciate that.
Thank you very much, Councilmember Blackham.
If you all stand, please repeat the Pledge of Allegiance with me.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, thank you so much. All right, we have call to the public, which for those who are new to our council meeting, is a sign up, and you can, this person who signed up can talk about whatever they desire for 3 minutes. So we have one individual signed up to speak, and it is Josh Belknap, so we'll invite you up to the podium, and we will listen.
All right. Well, I have the privilege of working for Kaysville City, but I am here today as a resident. I'm a proud resident. I'm grateful to be born here in this city, raised here, and still live here. And also, like I said, grateful to work here. I'm a pretty risk-averse person, and 2 years ago, my wife and I talked, about getting supplemental accident insurance for our family as a just in case. We got the coverage, and last year, we had an unexpected accident that almost took my oldest boy. We were really grateful in the situation that things were not worse. But after we faced some pretty significant medical bills, and as we sat in the aftermath thinking about the financial side of things, my wife remembered the accident policy, and that literally saved us. We weren't sure about it at the time when we picked it up, but when the need arose, I couldn't have been more grateful, and I don't know what we would have done without it. I hope to see every vote count and provide the community an opportunity to vote on if a second fire station is an insurance policy that they want to pick up. I'd now like to take the remainder of my time and wait for the end of 3 minutes, which I've been counting here, which when multiplied by 4 is the amount of time it currently takes for EMS crews to reach West Side families. thank you for all that you do. Thanks, Josh.
Thank you, Josh. That was a good object lesson. Appreciate that. Okay. We now have a presentation. We have a swearing in of our new Kaysville police officer, Cassidy Stewart. I'll turn the mic over to Chief Oberg. This is so exciting for us. Thank you, family, for being here.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I appreciate the time tonight. This is Officer Cassidy Stewart standing beside me. She's a new officer, but we are fortunate to have her as she's got all of her certifications, and so we were able to just hire her up and get her on the road. So we don't know a ton about her, except she did very well in the academy, well on all of her tests and scenarios. And I think she's probably soaking wet and freezing right now because she spent the last probably hour getting snowed on.
Oh, nice.
But she's doing a great job so far. So, do you have anything you want to say? I told her she had to prepare a big speech, but.
No. Yeah, really? I'll just say I had an opportunity to talk to your parents a little bit. And your mom said that this is something you wanted your whole life. You used to watch CSI?
Yeah, all of it.
Yeah? Yeah. And your sister maybe didn't have the same interest?
No.
Tell us why. Why is this a career that you've always wanted to be a part of?
I think just because I've always been drawn to investigations, and then I think helping people has been something that's important to me, and advocating for those who can't speak for themselves or maybe need help speaking for themselves.
Wow, that's incredible.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, of
Congratulations.
course. Thank you.
That's awesome.
So we'll have the city recorder will swear you in, and after that, we'll have your sister pin your badge on you.
Okay. Raise your right hand and repeat after me. I state your name.
I, Cassidy Stewart,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
to support and defend
to support and defend
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Utah,
and the Constitution of the State of Utah,
to perform my duties as a police officer
to perform my duties as a police officer
for Kaysville City
for Kaysville City
faithfully, with honesty, integrity,
integrity,
and fidelity.
and fidelity.
Congratulations.
If you'd like to invite your family up for a picture, we would love to have a picture with you as well as a council. So, yeah, come on up if family wants a picture.
No, you're good.
We usually try to, because it doesn't really move, so, yeah. Why am I the only one standing in front of it? Come on, Josh.
Well, I don't want to block you. There you go, right there.
A little awkward.
Now lean forward.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, thank you.
Oh my gosh. John's advice on pictures. Good job. Congratulations.
John's embraced that whole lean forward thing. Thank you, family of Officer Stewart. Appreciate you guys. Thanks. Nice to meet you. Thanks, Chief. Okay. Anyone have any conflicts of interest to declare before we move forward? No? Seeing none. Okay. Would someone like to make a motion on item number 5, consent items A through E?
I'll make a motion.
Okay.
Whoa, everybody left. I'll make a motion that we approve consent items A through E.
Okay.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second discussion. All right, Councilmember Jackson.
Let's see here. Yes.
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 Aye.
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 Okay, thank you.
I like yes.
Motion carries on that.
Why are we pirates?
All right, action item 6A, rezone request for property located at 1 West, 100 South, from professional business to central commercial for Justin Metcalf. Turn the mic over to Melinda, our Community Development Director, to present.
Well, from here forward, I'd like to have all the rezones done on consent.
Yes, wouldn't that be great?
Okay, we do have our applicant here with us this evening, Justin Metcalf. He submitted an application to rezone his property after speaking with our planning staff and understanding what his permitted uses were for signs on his property. I believe Ann discussed several options with him. Really, the couple options he would have had would be to propose a text amendment to allow additional sign types in the professional business zone or to rezone to central commercial. And obviously, he chose the rezone. So we're here this evening discussing that. We always want to just show an aerial shot of where the property is located. This is just south of here, right at the intersection of 50 West and Main Street. The property's frontage is off of 50 West. Also, when considering rezones, we want to consider the surrounding zoning. So this just shows the several properties in the neighborhood that are zoned professional business in that dark gray. There are properties adjacent that are zoned RM, and there are townhomes located there. R18 is to the west, and there's to the north we have our residential town site zone. The red color is our central commercial, and then to the east of there is yellow. That's our residential diverse zone. The future land use map right here is where that property is located. And that future land use map shows the property is to be used commercial, with a commercial use. We would consider the professional business a commercial use. So this application does match what the general plan calls for. I wanted to just go over quickly some of the differences between the professional business zone and the central commercial zone. It's also very important to consider those differences when you're rezoning a property. Permitted uses for the PB zone, which that's the column on the left, and then the central commercial is on the right, the longer list. So those permitted uses in professional business are quite limited. Really, it's business and professional offices. We have, this is an insurance company. I believe there's another insurance company south of this property on Main Street that also is professional business. So that could be a dentist office, an architect, a lawyer, those types of things. The uses in central commercial are quite expansive, and that is a big difference. Offices are also allowed, but retail sales and services are. You have theaters as a conditional use, motels, hotels, social halls, amusement arcades. So I know that the applicant isn't planning on changing the use. He wants to continue having his insurance business there. But there's also always a chance this property could be sold, a building could be demolished and something else could go in. So we did want to just provide the council with those different uses. Then again, the primary reason why Mr. Metcalf was wanting the rezone is to increase the type and allowances of signs that he would have ability to place on his property. So the professional business office you have really just a few sign types that are allowed. And I'm sorry, I don't actually think that's correct. Hold on, let me look at the staff report real quick. Okay. So yeah, this does say that an electronic message center is allowed in professional business. So that could be on the monument sign, which is really the only type of sign that's allowed. So a wall sign could be an EMC, the monument site could be an EMC, and then in the central commercial zone, again on the right-hand column, it's much more expansive with the different types of signs that are permitted. And all EMC signs are a conditional use. The sign height, the professional business allows a monument sign of 5 feet tall. And then the wall sign just can't extend above the height of the building. So the rezone could allow a sign up to 30 feet tall, a pole sign. You can see there's a lot more options for the business owner to provide signage for the property. With the frontage of this property, that we calculate the allowed sign size based on the frontage of the property. So this property could have 127.5 square foot sign. Additional information on the sign sizes, it's very technical with, depending on what type of sign and how big each of those are. Additional differences between the two zones, height of buildings and professional business is capped at 30 feet. In central commercial, it's 35. The setbacks are a little interesting. With the PB zone, it's 20 feet, or if you're abutting an R zone and the setback is completely landscaped, it could be as low as 8 feet setback. I believe the professional business zone was a zone really allowed to have like an adaptive reuse of residential properties. And so that sensitivity is really trying to play to not having, to convert an older home into a commercial use, but still protect that adjoining residential use. So if it's fully landscaped, that setback would be 8 feet. Otherwise, it would have to be 20 feet. In the central commercial zone, there is no setback. And I'm sorry, I had a copy and paste error there, but there is no setback or yard requirements in the central commercial zone. This item was presented at the Planning Commission on February 12th. We held a public hearing as required by law, and we did have one resident who came and spoke and just had concerns about what impacts a sign may have on their neighboring property. The Planning Commission did vote to recommend approval to the City Council with a 4-0 vote. However, they did express a little bit of concern about how a sign might impact the adjoining residential uses. And so it is always the prerogative of the council to enter into a development agreement. But if that is something that is concerned, the size, the height, the type of sign, that's something the council could ask staff to do, is draft up a development agreement to place limitations on that. So based on the Planning Commission recommendation, we are recommending approval of the rezone. And I know, as I said earlier, Mr. Metcalf is here. And if you have questions for him, he would be available to address those.
For sure, we'd like to invite you up. And while you're coming up, Melinda, do you know how tall the face sign is?
I don't. I think
Okay.
it's maybe about 15 feet
15
tall.
feet, okay.
But I know Ann looked back in building permits and wasn't able to find any information on that.
And their sign isn't lit, is it?
It might have some backlighting.
Does it? Case, I don't remember.
I think it is,
Is it lit at night, though?
just at night.
Just at night? I mean, okay, I'm just
He's
trying
got a
to,
monument sign.
Yeah, and then
that
he's
I
got a
think is
tall.
lit, But then the tall one, that's,
is it lit?
I think so.
Obviously, it's not a
I'm not here very
nuisance. I mean, I
often.
drive over there a lot, but I've not noticed that it's a nuisance, and I've never received any complaints on it, even though there are homes in the surrounding area, so, I don't know. Do you have some questions, Councilmember Jackson?
Sure, right off the bat.
Okay.
And so I read in here, you've been at that location for 20 years, is it?
A little over 20 years.
Oh,
yeah.
that's great.
2005.
Oh, excellent. Well, looking at the proposal, very happy to have your business here in our city. You mentioned that you are planning on a sign that's 10 feet
Correct.
tall. What square footage are you thinking of?
I mean, basically, I did a really kind of a mock with ChatGPT, you know, and it works out that if it was a 10-footer, it would be probably 5 to 10 feet wide.
Okay.
And then it would be facing this direction, so facing north. So
Okay.
if you look at my property where it is, it drops down off of Main Street. And when we first bought the property, we tried to get the city to sell us that little corner.
Yeah.
Which is zoned commercial and everything, just right there, just so we could put a monument sign up there. Because we knew that it was zoned this way. Well, they said, no, we can't do it. Turns out it was UDOT that owned it, gave it to the city. There's too many underground things going on there.
Okay.
So I totally get that. So my partner and my uncle, Scott Hershey at the time, well, he's still my uncle, but he was my partner at the time.
Yeah.
He just decided, you know what, I've got too many battles. Let's just back off, not do anything, but it makes absolutely no sense to put a monument sign in. Now, the negative to that is not just for my business, but I had someone come in just the other day. She says, I've been here for 35 years and I had no idea this is what you guys did. You know, and there's just no way for us to, I mean, we had an American Family sign, but recently we left American Family, so now
remember
we're
that.
independent.
Yeah.
To where we really have a need to rebrand, to let people know what we do and who we are. And that's one of the biggest reasons for me pushing
And
this.
where would the sign go, in the corner? You said the northeast?
Yeah, it would go, so right where that green
south-
line is,
Okay, right there.
yeah, so just on this side, there's two really big trees. And the sign would go right between those trees.
Okay.
You know, and I've talked to Dave DeFay as well, because, you know, he doesn't want his sign blocked, and really, there's no way I could block it unless I went to the very east corner of my property
And then
put
stick
up
it right
a
there.
20-foot sign, yeah.
Right, okay.
And did you say, is it going to be an electronic sign?
We honestly hadn't even got to that point.
Okay.
I mean, part of that is going to deal with costs.
Okay.
Clearly, because if it doubles my price,
Yeah.
I really don't need it to be lit. So I'm willing to look at, I'm pretty open to what needs to be done there. If there was a concern about that, we wouldn't have to light it, even though the only, I guess, adjoining property that could affect would be Dave DeFay and Main Street, because there's no residential, there's nobody that could even see the sign where it's going to be set.
So if you go with an electric sign, is the sign going to be seen from coming from the south and the north? Or is it
No.
just going to be seen
much
if you're
the
driving?
south.
South, okay, okay,
Just straight down Main Street.
okay. One concern I have is that if we do the property change, it will allow the sign to go up to 30 feet.
Yeah,
I don't feel comfortable with that.
I totally.
But I also don't want to be too restrictive, and so I would be comfortable doing this if we had a development agreement with the city and maybe established a 15-foot
I love that.
max size for the height and maybe some restrictions on the square footage, just so it's not too cumbersome and large, especially because that's where we enter the historic district and there's a lot of homes nearby.
I would agree with that 100%.
Okay, great. Any other comments?
I had a
Yes,
comment.
Councilmember McBride.
So on the setback agreements, is the house, is it already 35 feet off the road right now? I mean, are we already in are we able to rezone that and keep the house where it is?
What house?
Well, the
building.
office,
there's-
the
there's-
office building, I guess is what I'm saying, yeah.
Yeah, so there are no setbacks in central commercial.
Oh, so they could go all the way to the
Yeah.
curb? Is that what you're saying?
Yes, yes. And again, it would be, I don't know the distance between the south side of the building and the neighboring RM zone. But as long as that was landscaped, which it does appear that it's landscaped, and it was at least 8 feet, that would meet code. Let me, I'm gonna just do a quick measurement, while you continue to have discussions. Let me just look at that.
The other question I had is where the setback on the sign itself, can you put a sign anywhere on the property? Is that how that works? I mean, he could put it on the east side, west side, south side, is that how that,
Unless we tied them to a development agreement and a location.
but in a general
In theory.
commercial, you can
So
put it anywhere?
there would be setbacks with the sign that they would need to meet. It does look like that yard abutting the RM zone is 12 or 13 feet. Obviously can't be precise on a computer screen. Let me just pull up the sign code to look at those setbacks too.
I drove over there today, and I can see why
Yeah.
you would want that, because I use 50 West a lot, and I remember when it was American Family Insurance, because the sign was short, and I remember driving by it often.
Mm-hmm. It's a beautiful
but-
spot.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. It's kind of tucked
really-
away.
Mm-hmm.
But,
We love being in Kaysville. We really don't want to move. We want to just make this work, and so far it's been amazing for us.
I think it would be nice, though, to have some sort of development agreement in place, like Councilmember Jackson said, so that we can limit future use
Yeah.
and make sure that we don't have a digital blinking 30-foot sign that's out of place and does become cumbersome to the neighbor. So in order to do that, we would need a little bit more detail, I would think, on the sign.
Okay.
The setbacks says the minimum distance that any portion or sign structure shall be from any street, right-of-way line, and yard line continuous with the street. So essentially, the edge of the sign couldn't hang over any right-of-way. It would have to be set back.
On my property.
Yeah, so that, I mean, if your sign's 10 feet and the pole's in the middle, the pole would have to be 5 feet in from the property line.
Got it. Right, okay.
Can I ask a question real quick?
Hunt, yes.
Melinda, can you remind me what kind of sign is currently allowed on the property? I thought I saw on one of your slides that currently PB could have a 30-foot sign already. Did I misread that?
I think it's just a short monument.
It's a
sign.
5-foot monument.
Yeah.
Yep, a 5-foot monument sign.
Okay,
That's
okay.
it.
Which is what they used to have,
We've never
right?
had the monument.
Oh, American
It was
Family,
on
that
the
wasn't
side
you?
of the building.
Oh, was it on the building?
But we
Oh,
never
okay.
actually put the monument sign in because no one would see it.
Oh, okay, I do remember the side of the
Yeah.
building sign.
It was on the
Okay.
side of the building.
And that monument sign could have an EMC center, but the max height on that is 5 feet.
Any other comments or questions?
So I have one
Go
more
ahead.
question on it. So the PB zone was put in place to help protect like the residential that's right behind it, right? Am I understanding that correctly?
Well, I think the reason why the PB zone was created was to allow for flexibility in residential properties that really weren't desirable any longer. Like people, I wouldn't want a house on Main Street and backing onto Main Street. So the PB zone was created, I think, to allow for reusing residential properties with a lighter use that wouldn't impact the neighboring residential uses. I couldn't speak to why this particular property was rezoned to PB.
Okay. Well, the one concern that I've had with this, with any of this is the corner piece is actually city-owned. And does the city maintain that
Yeah.
currently? We plow it and
Yes.
everything else. Putting a sign right in front of that, of your office, which is great, almost gives the impression that that entire parking lot is your parking lot. And it's not a city public use parking lot. It's
Should we go back to what actually happened with that corner as you and I discussed?
We discussed it, but we can't find any paperwork, right?
No, and I'm fine. I'm
Yeah.
totally fine. I'm not
Yeah.
trying to argue it.
No, right.
And I'm
right,
not trying to claim the parking lot at
Right,
all.
right.
No.
Yeah, and
So I
so I
don't
get
understand
that.
your question. What is your question?
Well, my question would be, is your access to this property is essentially the city park, right?
I've got 2 access points.
But currently, right now, where people want to come to your office and everything else,
I still have 2,
the majority of them go in the back or the front?
both,
So,
50-50.
so my only concern would be is putting a sign right there from a person walking by, you would automatically assume that it was your parking lot, which we already have a parking issue right on Main Street in Kaysville. You know, and it would be nice to be able to let people know they could park there and everything else. It's not just,
Should we put a sign that says public parking?
I don't know. I don't know the answer to that.
Like, I don't know. I mean, you and I talked about this.
Right.
You didn't really express this when you and I were talking, so it's interesting that you're bringing it up like this.
I believe so if it is like
Yeah.
a city-owned or UDOT now city-owned parking lot, putting a public parking sign, that wouldn't really, that's something that we could do as a city at a future
Absolutely.
time, absolutely, but
Okay.
It's interesting because, and you know, you brought it up, but you didn't bring it up. Years ago, when they redid this whole corner, this was a deal between UDOT, the city, and Scott Hershey. That they basically said, hey, you pay for this curbing and whatnot, these are your parking stalls, whatnot. Well, Scott misplaces the paperwork, the city misplaces, everybody misplaces, and it is what it is. So we talked to the city and they said, hey, you know, I had a trailer out there, which I had parked out there. As soon as the city came and talked to me about it, we just pulled it away. It's not a big deal. I don't want to be a jerk about it. And we had been maintaining the corner. As soon as we made that determination, the paperwork wasn't found, whatever, fine. I don't want to fight it. I want to be a good neighbor. Let's make that public parking. I'm totally fine with that. And there's absolutely nothing. And if you came over to my property and you saw where I said we were going to put the sign, I don't think you would even have a question if that was trying to be my parking. I totally disagree with that. So I don't know why that was brought up, but it is what it is. I mean, I just think if my sign's on my property, I've got my parking stalls right next to me. I've got a parking stall to the east of me. But as far as anything across that little driveway, I don't want to claim it. I want it to be public.
Okay, thank you for that. Any other comments? Councilmember Blackham?
The only comment I have is that I don't want them to see, put a public parking sign there, because then people around there will just go park their car there and leave it
And leave it
there if
overnight.
they have a second car. And I don't think he wants that, and that's not what we want for the business, but
Right.
that's what'll happen if somebody puts a sign there that says
Yeah.
that. So I would prefer we don't do that.
Okay. Well, and the other thing, and this is the only thing that gives you a little bit of concern, is that we used to get snow in Kaysville. Well, obviously we don't anymore. So, but I've been plowing it. I've been snow blowing that whole corner and stuff for several years.
Yeah.
And it's been me and Scott, you know, and then all of a sudden the paperwork's not found. Fine, I don't care. It is what it is. But just, you know, we still need to now be able to establish who we are and where we are.
in my mind, if your parking lot's full and that parking lot's full and you're getting the business, I think that's fantastic, and so,
Most of the people that park there are Dr. Kamalo's
yeah.
Right, his
That's
patients.
great.
customers.
Yeah, that's true. Okay, any other questions?
Yeah, I'll make a motion. I guess before I do that, my only thing is, I don't want to be too specific, but I also don't want to allow just the 30-foot tall. And so as far as making a motion, is now the time to put size restrictions on that as we direct the city to develop an agreement?
If I may, have you consulted with a sign company?
Yeah.
Okay, and,
I haven't had it mocked.
Okay.
I've had the mock done on my building, but we've
Okay.
been waiting to come
Okay.
here to see what will be allowed before
Okay.
they've really done anything.
Right.
because honestly, one of my concerns would be that 10 feet might not be enough height. You know, and I don't know if they've looked at that property and the tree canopy, because obviously you don't want to be up in that tree canopy. That's a worthless sign for at least half the year. You would want to be below that tree canopy. There is a grade difference between Main and 50 West. And I would just want to make sure that you're confident that whatever limitations the council puts will actually allow you to do what you want. So a suggestion would be maybe that the two of us sit down and kind of maybe even with a sign company you consult and get a little bit more details on what you would want, and then we bring back a proposal. But if the council, wants to maybe just cap it at 20 feet, a certain amount of square footage, then I think that would be fine too.
I know that would be adequate for what I'm wanting to do.
The 10 feet?
Well, if you say capped at 20.
Oh, or at 20, okay.
Yeah, if you say capped at 20, I know that that's far higher than what I would want to do.
Do you know the height of your building?
I don't.
Okay.
You know what?
Okay.
I honestly, looking at like with Dave DeFace,
yeah,
I believe Dave's is between 10 and 15 feet. And mine, I believe, would be just very effective to be about that height.
I think what we're able to maybe give you at this meeting is sort of a head nod in that we would be okay with a development agreement that limits the height. Are we kind of okay with that? Just to give him some direction moving forward before you put, to let you know, go make an investment, find out, sit down with the sign company, and then bring it back to us. Because I'm not really comfortable with capping it at a certain height either, because maybe it's too high. You know what I mean? We want to make it work for you, but we don't want someone else to be able to come in and do something that doesn't work for the rest of the community. So is that sort of a warm kind of nod? Does that work, Nick?
Yeah, I think I
So
understand that.
not necessarily taking action, just sort of tabling it for more information, but letting you know that, yes, we're open to doing that.
Okay. What would be our timeline?
2 weeks.
Yeah. Does this have to go back through planning commission? It doesn't, right?
No.
Okay. Yeah.
Does that
So as soon
allow
as you're
enough
ready.
time to? Okay.
Our meetings are every, twice a month,
Okay.
so.
Okay.
Yeah, so our next meeting would be the 19th.
Thanks, Chief. Does that give you enough time?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
If that's the direction the council wants to go, then the motion would be to table it pending a development agreement.
Okay.
So I'll make a motion that we table action item A pending a development agreement.
I'll second.
Okay. Comments? Nope. Okay, seeing none. Councilmember Adams.
Aye.
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 Yes.
Okay, good luck. Thank you. All right. Okay. A resolution amending the Kaysville City personnel rules and regulations regarding introductory periods for newly hired and promoted employees. We have talked about this as a work item, so I'll turn the mic over to our city attorney, Nick.
Thank you, Mayor Tran. It's good to be with you all tonight. Just a brief reminder, this would leave the probationary period, introductory period at 6 months, but in positions that had extensive training requirements, this could be extended to a year. It would also do the same thing for promoted employees. It would put them on a probationary period for 6 months, but that could be extended to a year. We found that that's helpful. As we talked about last time, some particularly police employees and some fire employees undergo a lot of training, and by the time they get done with their training, there's very little time left for us to actually evaluate them as a city. So happy to answer any questions.
All right, this makes sense. I think this is great policy. Council, any comments? Nope. Okay, would someone like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion that we approve action item B, a resolution amending the Kaysville City personnel rules and regulations regarding introductory periods for newly hired and promoted employees.
I second it.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Comments? Seeing none. Councilmember Blackham.
Aye.
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 Okay, motion carries. Thank you very much. Item 6C, placing a general obligation bond on the ballot for a fire station. We'll have a presentation, and then we do have someone signed up for public comment before we discuss it further. Jason.
Thanks, Mayor. We don't have a formal presentation, but we did want to, I guess I'll kind of recap where we've been. Everyone knows that we've been talking about a fire station on the west side for many years, and around November, we had a strategic work session, and at that point, there was a straw poll taken and to move it to a general obligation bond for residents to vote on. And as we've kind of put more time into this, we're starting to work on educational materials, where we put out an RFQ for some architectural services to do it, just a kind of a schematic design, high level, and we're expecting to get some results on that maybe within the next 2 months. That'll include a preliminary engineering estimate too, very high level, but that won't move the number very much. We think our estimate around 16 million is pretty darn close to where it's going to land based on recent construction and where we see the square footage of our station. So obviously last meeting, this was discussed as a work item, moved to an action item tonight. This is, I just want to emphasize, this is not the final decision to put it on the general obligation bond for November. That formality happens in August, and that's when the council would vote on a resolution with the actual language and the actual tax levy amount and everything like that. So that's August 20th, and at that point, it goes to the Lieutenant Governor's office and it goes on the ballot in November. But this is really just a touch point with the council to see, are we still on track? Are we still, comfortable with moving forward, putting this out to a public vote? And that's kind of what we wanted to do. I did circulate on the dais there, this information from Zions. This is a few months old, but this is still pretty accurate. We asked them to, based on a $16 million general obligation bond, what would that look like in terms of a debt service, and how much would that levy on the average homeowner in Kaysville? So they said that a $16 million bond, based on their best estimates of the time, interest rates and things like that, you'd be looking at debt service of about $1.1 million, $1.2 million a year. And so that would result in about $114.90 on the average homeowner.
Of $690,000 house, right?
Correct. A house valued at $690,000, which is the average fair market value in Kaysville. They'd have a tax levy of $114.90 for the general obligation bond, and that's what people would be voting on in November if this were to go on the ballot. Something that we wanted to be clear about, though, because we've watched other cities go through this process, and they get the general obligation bond or they fund the station, and then sometimes there's not the political will or comfortable level of comfort to move forward with staffing the whole station. And so we wanted to be clear up front that when residents, if they were to vote on this, they are voting for the general obligation bond, yes, for the station, but we want them to understand that there's also other costs. It's not just the station, it's also the cost of staffing it. And so if the council continues to move forward with this, when we get to the point of drafting language for the November ballot, we would include language that would say, you're voting on the bond, which is this much, but understand that the city would also be raising taxes to pay for staffing that station. And we're estimating the full cost of a full staff would be about $2 million a year. And that's where Zions kind of came up with that second number on the right of $195 a year to staff a station. And then, so the flip side of that has the combined cost, total tax impact of the debt service and the annual operating costs. And that would be about $310 a year on the average home. So,
I appreciate that clarification, because we do want to make sure that we're very transparent in this process and people know it's not just building the station, it's also staffing it full-time forevermore.
absolutely.
Right, so I appreciate that, okay.
Chief's here tonight, of course, as well. I know I've heard questions and things, so we're here to answer questions and see where the council is if there's.
Okay, we do have someone signed up for public comment, so we'll invite you up, David. Please state your name. You don't have to state your address, just your name.
Good evening. My name is David Earhart. I live in West Kaysville on Farmhouse Circle. Making the decision to build a new fire station is never easy, especially in this fiscal climate. However, as the governing body of this city, you have a unique responsibility to look beyond the balance sheet and recognize a fundamental necessity. you have a moral obligation to address the fact that the lives of West Side residents are currently at an elevated risk compared to those on the East Side. Most of you ran for office on the promise that public safety was your highest priority. Those promises should weigh heavily on you tonight. At the February 19th meeting, I heard a consensus that the magnitude of this investment requires a general obligation bond, putting the station's fate on the November ballot. While I understand the financial advantages, I was alarmed by the suggestion that if citizens vote no, the council will simply walk away from the project. I believe that making safety contingent on a single ballot initiative is a failure of the stewardship you promised the citizens of Kaysville. You are the most informed individuals in this city regarding our infrastructure gaps. Fire Chief Erickson has provided an objective, sobering statement of our current inadequacies. The 2024 Kaysville Fire Department Annual Report confirms the story for nearly every West Side zone. The drive time alone is longer than the total NFPA 1710 response time objectives. We are not just missing the mark, we are failing to meet the basic standard of care for a growing portion of our population. This discussion has been stalled for 6 years at least. We cannot afford to let a failed bond initiative result in more years of inaction while the safety of West Side residents continue to deteriorate. If you believe the need is real, and the data proves it is, then you must have the courage to lead. I am asking you to commit tonight that public safety on the West Side will not be made contingent on a single ballot outcome. If the GO bond fails, I am asking for your commitment to find an alternative path forward immediately. We cannot allow the I-15 to remain a boundary between those who are safe and those who are not. There will never be a good time to spend $16 million for the new station and budget for the $2 million annual operating costs. But it will never be cheaper than it is today, and the risk will never be lower than they are right now. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate your comment. All right, council members. Councilmember McBride.
Quick question. When they're talking about the value here, the average home value, are they looking at the taxable value or the market value?
Market, where it says FMV, that's fair market value, so.
Fair market value, okay.
Yeah. Good question.
Councilmember Blackham.
Just all I was hoping is that there would be more than just the average. I mean, I was hoping there would be more data saying if the valuation was 800,000, it's this much. If your valuation's 900,000, it's this much. If it's $1 million, this much. Because I don't think people understand how much it's actually going to cost them.
And good question, yeah.
And because I think the more information we put out on that, I mean, it's like I was riding home the other day in the car, and the guy on the radio says, how many people driving down the road right now couldn't afford their own house if they had to buy it? And I think about everybody would have pulled over at that point if that's what he said to do. But I just want to make sure that when people get their taxable information, they can relate this back to know exactly how much it's going to cost them, And the other thing that I was kind of hoping that we could work it out in a timeline, because you don't just build a fire station overnight. So I was kind of hoping, because we know right now, because of what happened to us last year, we are faced with a tax increase this year just to make up for our general operations, correct? That's the plan, because we had to dip into our reserve funds because we didn't have enough money. We were okay doing it the year before we did, but there was a tax increase that was so. But we also raised rates on power and water, and I know mine alone, just my monthly, because I do the monthly deal where it's a calculated amount. It's the same. And mine went up $37 a month. So that was an increase. So I was hoping that this budget season, we would be able to deal with our tax increase. Then we would have the fire station on the ballot. And then if it passed, then it would go to the 27-28 budget, right, which would use an increase instead of being included in the 26-27 budget. And then we would, if it passed, then that would be the following budget year, and that would fall in line pretty close to construction. And then the following year, we would be able to go for the 28-29, because it's going to take roughly about a year to build it. we would be able to take personnel in the following year, so that we're not lumping it all into one. We can break it into our tax increase, to our fire station bond, to the operating in 3 different years, because in reality, that's about how long it's going to take to do it, rather than this year, while we're trying to figure the budget without actually knowing whether it's going to pass on the ballot or not.
Well, and I thought that was the plan.
That's-
That is the plan.
That is correct.
It's
Yeah,
not
that
gonna,
would
it's
be
not gonna
the-
hit us all this
Okay.
fiscal year. Yeah.
Right?
Even if it passes.
Because I was under the assumption it was going to be included in our budget in August for this year, and so it's not going to be.
It would be
Okay.
included, but good question. So what would happen if it did go on the ballot and it did pass? Obviously, we're not budgeting any money this year, but if it passed in November, we would get to work right away, which means we need money to start engineering services and design services, and so there'd have to be a budget amendment to fund some money, in the 26, 27 year to start that. But the real hit obviously would be in the following year, the 27, 28, like you said, where, that's when we're going to be getting into construction.
And then hopefully maybe the 28, 29 would be the operating.
Yes.
Correct.
Okay.
But we do want people to know up front.
Yeah, we want them to know up front that
Yeah.
each one of these increments is a fairly significant increase.
Right.
Plus, we have other things in the city that we have to be careful of. But in reality, when you look at our taxable revenue, it's about 5.9 million. And with our additional tax increase for this year, it's a little over $1 million. Jason, is that correct? Or
This coming year?
yeah, this coming year.
Well, that's for next week's
But
discussion. But for what we should have gotten this year, this current year, it was 1.7 million, so that's kind of our
1.7
starting
million. Okay,
point.
so it's more than what I'm saying. And so that's going to take, I just want to make sure we all know that all this is coming down the road.
Right.
And everybody needs to be very clear on what they're voting on and what it's going to cost them. Just want to be as clear as possible on that.
Absolutely. These are very difficult discussions because we're talking about public safety, we're talking about great needs. We've got needs all over the city, to your point, and we've got, that's what makes this so difficult. I will say too, when we work on the educational materials, we will have definitely different, if your house is worth 500,000, 600, up to whatever, so people can get a sense. Also on this sheet, on the left there, where it's got the $114.90 for the annual impact to a $690,000 house. Right below that, it's got the per $100,000. And so for every $100,000 that your house is valued at, fair market value, it's $16.95 or $16.65. So you could basically say, okay, if my house is valued at $600,000 or let's say $500,000, I would take 5 times $16.95, and that's my annual impact. But there'll be a formula, but it will also have sort of different levels
Tiers of it.
so people can kind of quickly look at it and get a sense.
As much information as we can put on.
Absolutely. Yeah, we've got a big range of values, of course, in Kaysville and houses. So yeah, we'll try to be really transparent and clear about what that impact would be.
Chief, can we ask you a question? Councilmember Adams has a question for you.
Take your time. Handsome devil.
He's getting older.
I always do. Yes, sir.
I forgot what I was going to ask. No, I'm just kidding. I didn't.
No, you did.
Fruit Heights, have you discussed or talked, or is there any talk with the possibility of them rejoining? Do you know when that contract is up by any chance?
Didn't even know they signed a contract. I'm hearing
Okay.
3 years, I'm hearing 5 years. I have zero idea.
I think it's 2, right?
I
2 more?
have regular conversations with Fruit Heights. I've never actually seen the contract myself, but I'm told that it's got about another 2 years left on it.
That's what I've been told as well.
So it must have been a 5-year.
Who wants to bid on a 5-year?
No, I said it must have been a 5-year if they got 2 years.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, I mean, mostly I'm curious, I've been talking to a couple of their city council members that are new, and they're intrigued with the idea of coming back. You know, that's something that would definitely help with the
With their bond payment?
with the $2 million operating expenses increase, because if we were able to get them back at 500, that would decrease that to 1.5, yeah.
I don't know.
And I mean, assuming that we aren't staffing the west side station for another 2 years, and they're,
Yeah, that's, I would agree with that, but, you know, as far as, you know, getting them back and stuff like that, you know, I think that's more of a conversation for city managers or mayors and stuff, but we go there anyway. And as I stated earlier, it's no knock to anybody, but when Farmington does move further west, it becomes more of a problem for us, for sure.
yeah, and for them. I mean.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, all right, that was my question.
Thank you,
Hate to see you go, but love to watch you leave.
And David, to your
John Adams, everyone.
You're welcome.
He'll be here all evening.
to your public comment, I appreciate what you had to say
I do
as
too.
far as the response times, and it is a big decision. I do want to make sure that people who are listening know. I live on the west side as well. A lot of us do. Chief, this is not a public danger necessarily decision, right? I mean, there's a risk. There's an element of risk for sure.
It's always
But we
a
don't want
risk,
people
ma'am.
to think that if we don't get this next year, the west side's not going to have coverage.
Well, you know,
Right.
it's probabilities and possibilities.
Right. I mean, there's
risk.
it's how
you
risk
know.
averse or risk.
It's doing your
Sensitive are
due
we?
diligence and your needs assessment. I will tell you this, we ran the numbers, and our call volume is 25% of our call volume is on the west side.
Mm-hmm.
So 25.1 to be exact, but, so, you know,
Yeah.
it's increasing over there. It's increasing everywhere.
Well,
And
for
as
sure.
I said earlier, when our partners to the north or south, if theirs increase, inherently, we're going to increase, you know.
Right.
We're just fortunate enough that Layton is a big enough city and has a big enough department and enough stations to cover their needs.
Well, and we're growing. I mean, obviously in the west side, that's where the development will take place, and so we definitely want to make sure that we're in front of that.
Sure.
David, you did make a comment that if it failed as a GO bond, what would the city do as an alternative? What happened a couple of years ago was the police station was on the ballot as a GO bond. It failed, and then the city went ahead and built it anyway because they felt like there was a need. And that created a lot of chaos because people said, look, we voted it down, but yet you built it anyway. Why'd you even have it on the ballot to begin with? And so that's why we really need to make this decision and not take it lightly, because in my opinion, if it fails as a GO bond on the ballot, I don't think we can turn around and go build one with another bond.
No, and I think Chief.
Because I think that is.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to.
Sorry, it looks like it's really misrepresenting the purpose of being on the ballot, and so we do need to make a decision.
Well,
Go
and
ahead.
Chief Oberg said last night, as you recall, he said that one of the problems the department had is when the bond did fell under the vote, the people kind of held it against the police department for a few years when they
A
did
long
build
time.
it. And he said it was kind of one of those things that they had to make up for, and it really wasn't even their fault, you know.
And it
so
was 15 years ago?
It was in 2012, and they
Yeah.
ended up building it in 2014.
Yeah, it was a while ago.
So I mean, you asked the risk of putting it on a ballot. That is the risk,
Right.
right? You put it on a ballot, and because of what happened in the past, you're not looking at a West Side Fire Station for another 4 years after that.
Right,
So I mean, you're kicking a can down the road.
which will then be a $25
So,
million fire station.
You know, the gentleman's comment was, you know, it makes it even more like, you know, what do you do? And then you look at the GO bond savings, you know, $528,000 over 20 years. That's $26,000 a year. Is that really a savings?
It's not so much that, Chief, is what I'm hearing is people are having a struggle right now just making ends meet.
Sure.
And so.
And I
so
pay
what
taxes like everybody
yeah,
else.
and so do I. And I know as a retired person and a somewhat fixed income now, yeah, it is tough. And I hear a lot of people down there who are saying, I don't know how I'm going to pay for this. And that's why
Sure.
one of the reasons I'm trying to spread it out as far and as best I can. But the most important thing is I think when you educate these people, because they're highly educated, and you teach them in Kaysville of what the reasons are and let them make their decisions, I think they'll have the ability to make what they feel is the right decision. But I just, it's a lot of money. And we could build 4 new stations and if at a crazy cost, but each time we do it, it'll lessen the risk.
Sure.
We could do that.
Sure,
But,
absolutely.
so.
Councilmember Adams. go
Yeah, I
ahead.
was just going to say, one of my ideas that's been shot down has been to have a satellite station primarily only for emergent, paramedic, and not to take paramedics out of our current station, but to look at that as an option, as an alternative. And when Mr. Eckhart, it's Eckhart, right? Earhart, I apologize. When he was talking, that was one of the things that I was thinking about, not necessarily the way the police station went, which was to say that they built essentially the same building that they had put on the bond. But I would feel more comfortable as a council member if the bond were voted down to do something more Band-Aid related, more like that idea, and it wouldn't be so much against what the people said. It would be then a decision of the council to say, hey, look, we understand you didn't want the full fire station, but we are concerned about the immediate safety of people getting help from paramedics, and so we want to do this smaller, more refined approach.
So I do have a little something for you on that. One unit has no backup. The moment the ambulance is on a call on the west side, we still have 0 coverage. That's the exact problem we're trying to fix. Just a different truck parked on the wrong side of the town on a good day. An ambulance cannot fight fire. Every structural fire on the west side still pulls an engine from across town. Around response times do not change. A parking spot is not a station. Therefore, the crew doesn't have a place to properly eat, sleep, decontaminate, store equipment, reservice their equipment, their air packs, their vital needs that they do. They would still have to come back up to Station 1, do all their reservicing, and that's a wasted time of coming up here. Overlapping calls, one mechanical failure, one crew tied up at a hospital, we're back to 0 every time we do that. A second station gives multiple units, housing personnel, true redundancy, covers that doesn't evaporate the moment we get busy. It helps our ISO rating, which affects Kaysville homeowners to pay insurance, and it's a positive for the growth that we're seeing happen on the west side. Staging an ambulance is not a cheaper version of what we need.
I understand what you're saying. I don't think you understood what I was saying, which was to say that if the bond fails, you're telling me having a second ambulance closer is a bad idea?
No, I don't think it's going to help much. I really don't. We have about 500 calls on that west side, of which 300 of those calls are EMS calls, of which half of those are transport calls, so they're out of our city and there's no one on the west side anyway. And then the others call for double to come from over here to over there with an engine anyway.
But you'd still have an ambulance here and one there. That would not.
Yeah, but once that ambulance leaves, that engine is still coming from here to over there, and we have an ambulance here.
Well, and I think so someone mentioned to me that they had heard that if we get on a call and we've got just a regular truck out, and then we need a ladder truck, it needs to come from another city. But after having a conversation with you, what you explained to me is the reason that it will come from another city is because half of our crew would have to go back to the station to get a ladder truck to bring it in. Because we are short-staffed already, right? We don't have duplication like that. And so I think what you're saying is kind of that point.
I'm talking just paramedics, and where I'm talking about, like, you talk to people in Salt Lake, for example, the gentleman that's running against me for county commissioner works for the paramedics in Salt Lake, and he sits in an ambulance, which I can see now why he's running for county commissioner. He sits in an ambulance for 9 hours in a parking lot.
Yeah, because it's Gold Cross. Salt Lake don't have ambulances.
Okay, but my point is that they wouldn't do that if it didn't help, if it wasn't helpful
Didn't give 'em coverage.
for one thing or
They
another.
also sit in fire stations in Salt Lake.
Okay, but my point is, it has to be better than nothing, having someone closer.
I
With
think
an
you'd have a
ambulance.
recruitment problem, and I don't want to get down.
Well, I'm
to
not saying we'd
weeds.
want him to sit in an ambulance, but, okay.
Exactly.
So you would prefer it to be all or nothing?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, you're pulling enough from here anyway. I'll take a full arrest, just as a quick example. A full arrest. We have 2 paramedics that hit full arrest on the west side.
Full
It's
arrest, cardiac arrest?
Cardiac arrest.
Okay.
It still takes 6 to 8 people to run a full arrest.
Yeah.
You're still pulling from here, and the response times are still the same. They
Even
don't
if
change,
even
just-
if the first crew gets
You
there
bet.
4 minutes earlier?
So they got the early intervention,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
The early intervention is there.
I mean, there are different times for BLS and ALS, right, from 1710?
Yeah, but you're still looking at 4 minutes for the first crew to get there, so the first crew is fine.
5, isn't it?
And then you still got 8 for the next one. 1710 is 4 and 8.
I thought it was 5 and 8.
Nah, it's 4 and 8.
Okay.
So,
Shoot, that was very cryptic of you too, to speak in a foreign language for a
Speaking
moment.
Fire station language,
But
we don't understand.
But I guess like I would, if one of my family members was having a cardiac arrest, I would prefer someone to be there at 4 minutes, 2 people to be there at 4 minutes prior to the other 6 showing up. I would
can't
think that would be
disagree
a
with that,
benefit.
But you can't do everything you possibly need to do on a full arrest with 2 people. That's all I'm trying to say.
I
It
get
takes
it.
more
I'm just
people.
saying it's
Okay.
better than nothing.
And we can discuss, but
Yeah, I
I
was
think
gonna
the
say-
point is we,
So as far as deciding on putting on a ballot tonight, this is the discussion, is
Well,
us deciding, but yet Jason says that.
We're not actually making that resolution tonight. We're just saying, are we going to go down that path? Are we going to go down the ballot path? And if we come to some sort of consensus that we are, we'll move forward down that path, right?
Then this is wrong on the action item, because the action item says that placing a general obligation bond on the ballot for a fire station is what we're,
But we'll still have to have a resolution to do that August 20th council meeting. That would make it official,
Absolutely.
right?
This is
It's like
honestly.
a tentative plan.
Correct, Mayor. If I may, this is exactly the kind of discussion that I'm glad we're having now as opposed to August 20th. Because we could have just waited and said, you know what, we don't have to do anything until August 20th. But I know until you get to that point of saying, all right, put it on the ballot, there are going to be all kinds of questions, dialogue that needs to take place. And I'm glad we're having that now so that we can continue to vet this. And I think these kind of questions are going to continue to come up with the public as well. They're going to want to understand it. And so this is part of the process, and I'm glad we're doing it.
Mayor, I would feel more comfortable. Part of the thing, and I know you still want to talk, so
No,
I
it's
won't
okay.
make it,
Take as much time as you
I won't make a request yet. But one of the things that I would feel more comfortable doing prior to us voting on this would be to have Mayor and Ms. Nelson here to discuss some of what Mike's talking about, where it would come in a transition, and be able to answer some of those questions for us. At least for me, that would give
what do you, transition of
You mean
timeline?
the timeline
yeah. Because right now we're talking about like 114, 195, all these different things. Like we aren't really seeing, and we aren't seeing what our numbers are possibly going to look like for this year. Like it seems like a situation where we would want to at least be able to ask her some of those questions.
Well,
Can
yeah,
Can
but
I
for,
give a suggestion?
No, yeah, maybe.
I wouldn't even worry about this. Forget about what this says on this action item.
we're just
And-
having a discussion.
And, yeah,
Yeah.
we'll just give you that timeline and get Marin in here, we'll get some people
Yeah,
who know
yeah.
the numbers and give you the numbers.
And really,
Our
we,
real timeline, yes, we would like to do a little education, talk to Scott and a couple other people and get some numbers right. But our really timeline is August 20th, right?
right,
So let's get it right before then.
right.
Yeah, then that's what I'm suggesting. Like, I feel like at least the way it's worded on the action item gives me pause to be able to make, to vote yay on something that says placing it on a general obligation bond on the ballot.
How about
Jason,
if
I'm
we
not
just,
speaking for you, but I think you just did that because we didn't get a timeline. If you remember
Right.
right, you put it as an action item with no date.
right,
Yeah.
right.
So
Right.
Jason pulled the trigger and said, all right, let's talk
Let's
about
talk about it. Let's just have it as a continual
Is that
work
fair?
item for the next
That's
couple
fair.
of council meetings.
Yeah, we
Is
can
that okay?
continue, really, this is all we wanted, I think, all I wanted at least, is just to continue to keep it on the radar.
Yes.
This is really more than I wanted, but
Well, Chief, welcome to public
Yeah.
service. No, this is part of the process, and I
Yeah, I
know
agree.
it can be frustrating because everyone's got strong opinions on this, and there's a lot of stuff to digest.
Right.
Yeah, I'm gonna get off my soapbox because I'm tempted to talk some more, but I think, yeah, this is great. Let's keep on talking
Let's
about
keep on
it.
talking.
We just really wanted to make sure council knows we're still working on it.
I like it.
We've
Well,
got the
and-
RFQ out now and all that stuff as well.
Well, and I guess the other feedback that you're kind of wanting from us is, are we more comfortable putting it on the ballot? I mean, is that the direction ultimately that we feel like we should take as a council? And we're not committing to it, but just maybe a head nod. Do we feel like it should be a ballot initiative, or do you think that we should just pull the trigger and make the decision ourselves? Can we take a warm vote, just a verbal sort of heads up on that ballot?
I would say that I'm leaning that way.
Yeah, yeah,
The way
not
that we're
committing.
leaning
We're not
maybe
committing.
should be the way that we're pursuing, yeah, maybe.
Yeah, kind of going down that road, rather than just saying, oh, you know what, we absolutely have to have this, we're going to just do it come what may. It feels like, in having conversations with people, we feel more comfortable letting the public vote on it. I do feel confident that once educated, I think about the initiative, or about this, I think it'll pass. I really do. And it is a big ask, but we're also a big city. And I think we can make our decisions, but I think we collectively could do that. I think it would be a better coming together sort of decision-making process. What do you guys think? Councilmember Hunt?
Well, I guess this is just such a rough situation. I mean, there are no perfect situations. There are no situations where it's like, oh, we've got an excess, we'll build a fire station now, unless you're Farmington. Ugh, those guys. Anyway, and when I first started looking at this, years ago, I was like, okay, we're going to get this in. We talked about it. The risk isn't too high yet. The risk isn't too high. We feel pretty comfortable still. And we went down that. And then we got to a point where I felt like, gosh, maybe we're not going to be able to make this happen. And I think that's kind of, for me, where support for the GO bond came from, was this is a way to at least get this to happen. Like, it had stalled for so long that I thought, at least this is a way to get this to happen. Personally, not because I don't like public input. I love public input. Personally, though, the longer we've gone down this GO bond thing, the less comfortable I have felt, just because I am very risk averse. Now, if that's what we decide to do, I will support it 100%, because I want to get this done. But for me, I almost would rather say, look, we're going to do this, maybe not this year, we're going to commit to do it next year on the same timeline we would have if we had put it on the ballot, and continue, step by step, like Mike or Councilmember Blackham was suggesting. And I guess I just want to reiterate my flexibility there in saying, if we can do this without putting it as a bond and make sure it happens, I would rather do that, because we've already talked about the multiple chess moves of, well, what if we put it on and it doesn't vote, then we have to wait 4 years. Like, I think the GO bond is simultaneously possibly the fastest way to get it done and also the slowest way to get it done, depending on how the coin goes. So,
Well, and Nick, there's no time frame, is there? I mean, if it's on the ballot and it fails, we could still build it the next year, couldn't we? Make that decision, or do we have to wait a certain number of years before taking, or Jason?
If the council wanted to unilaterally decide if
Well,
it failed, then go ahead and do a
Say
revenue
if it fails on the ballot this year, and then the next fiscal year, we say, you know what, it did fail, but we've got to get this done, and so now we're just going to do it. Do we have to wait a certain number of years, or is that
No.
just more public perception, where you'd think, oh, maybe give it a couple years, because the public said no? There's no law.
Nick may know better than I, but it's just optics.
Yeah,
There's
it's just
nothing that
optics,
says
right.
the council couldn't today or
Right.
next year after, if it fails, do what they thought was best.
Okay. Okay, just curious about that, just to make sure that we're clear on what we're dealing with. But thank you.
Yeah,
Councilmember
well,
Hunt.
so that's where I'm coming from. I mean, I love to hear where everyone else is at, but that's kind of, I don't know, what I've been thinking over the last little while as we've been deliberating on this.
For sure. I mean, we have been entrusted to make hard decisions. Get that totally. So,
I'm 100% geo bond, and I'm not even going to talk about that other hurdle until I know what happens with it.
okay. Councilmember McBride, do you want to?
Right now, I'm more leaning towards the geo bond, right?
Okay, thank you. Councilmember, sorry.
Sure, I have some comments.
Jackson.
So just a few things. Yeah, I've really appreciated all the comments from everyone up here, because Councilmember Blackham, I had the same concerns. When we're talking about our FY26 tax increase was denied, and then adding that essentially back into this, and I was doing some math trying to add it up, and I came up with a 705% increase total.
If it happened in 1 year.
Yeah, 1 year, but just total, and that gave me a lot of heartburn. But the comments like tonight about the need for it and what Josh did, absolutely, we absolutely need to have it, and I'm risk adverse as well, like Councilmember Hunt said. So I've been really nervous about putting it on the ballot because I don't want it to fail. And if it fails, I really don't want the city to go through what it went through with the police station. And so, but Councilmember Adams, I think you bring up a really good point. It's not ideal, but I think in a scenario where if it did fail, I would hope that the city would move forward with a brick and mortar for an ambulance station, something that can be added onto in the future with a full fire station, but with a full ambulance crew there. And that way we could hopefully avoid having the public turn against the fire and the city. And so I'm just really worried about that. But, so I appreciate everyone's comments here and the mayor's comments. But Jason, I was curious, so if we move forward with this with kind of the timeline that Councilmember Blackham mentioned, like, are there any constraints that you foresee with the city and the budget that we're not taking into account as we discuss this? And I think as we move forward, it would be nice to kind of hear that from you and from the finance department, because that's a real concern to me, equally as much as having good coverage, so.
Well, yes, we have constraints. I mean, that's something I'd like to talk with the council about, see what you're looking for. I mean, we can kind of project out our other needs, and we can quantify those. But I guess I'm kind of just looking for feedback on what you're kind of looking for there. If you're looking for, hey, what's the total number if we do the fire station, we do all the infrastructure needs we have with water and streets and other building needs, is that kind of what you're looking at? What's the total impact, like 3 years down the road, if we were to get everything we think we need, or 5 years down, what does that tax burden look like?
Absolutely.
Is that kind of what you're?
Yeah, that and a deputy chief, like all this together, all the needs of the city. It would be nice to have more of an understanding. I would feel more confident going into putting it on the ballot if we had that. And one thing that I can't commit to is putting it on the ballot and to have an action plan to just do it anyway if it fails. I don't think in good conscience we as a council should act that way. And so we need to have a good game plan to what's next, and we have to have coverage over there. And so I think we should realistically look at Councilmember Adams' just idea of a satellite office. Now, I in no way think that we should have ambulance personnel sitting in an ambulance. We need to have bricks and mortar. We need to have a good station that we can build onto, but I really think we need to flesh that out as a plan B. But really, optimally, we need to get this passed on the ballot, and we need to do our due diligence.
And you know, to that point, I agree with that, for sure. If it fails, we need to do something. If the geo bond is there, it fails. But our folks sitting in the ambulance is not a thing.
Yeah.
You know, so on that note, Councilmember Jackson, absolutely. I'm all for that part, but, you know, to be in a compliant facility where they have
Right.
the needs that they need,
Right.
if you will, not the wants, the needs.
Right.
And that's what I'm foreseeing, a compliant facility that's big enough to meet those needs, but something that can be added on to with a full station.
Yeah,
eventually,
especially because I'm me personally, and this is not my gig. I'm not an elected official whatsoever, and don't claim to be. But the optics aren't good if it doesn't pass, and then you do something anyway.
Oh, yeah, for sure, for sure.
Yeah.
And that's a big risk.
Yeah.
I think that even talking to people on the east side, and we don't want this to be an east-west sort of battle, but when I've talked to people, just generally speaking, we need another fire station, people agree. And I do tell them how much it's going to cost, and they still agree. Now, they're not thinking, okay, personally, this is going to affect me in this way. I'm sure it's just a big picture conversation, but I think if we can educate people, no matter what we decide to do, we need to educate people and let them know, you know.
That's what we do generally anyway.
Yeah, we just.
Communications, so let's get a little bit better.
Exactly, right? We just need to start talking about it
It
and,
can always be better.
yes, yeah. So, okay, thank you, Chief. I think that you've got information, right, Jason, to move
Thank you.
forward? Okay, can we just have this as a work item and continue to work on it?
Do you need a motion or
Do we
not?
need a-
Could I ask clarification?
Yes.
So do you want this on every meeting or just when we think we have new information to share?
I'll make a motion that we make action item C and return it back to a work item.
And I would like it as an every meeting sort of update, because I
As an
think
update.
that there's enough information and questions that are going to come,
Sure,
And if we
absolutely.
can,
You set the agenda, you can do that.
right? Well, we can all do that together, yeah.
Well, you know I
Okay.
got some trips coming up, right?
You guys- you don't have to be here for every meeting,
I think Jason.
every meeting.
Send an envoy.
But it's a really good discussion. I think we need to keep talking about it. So,
Send your, what's your lieutenant chief or whatever, the one that we hired last one. I'm just kidding.
And you're not funny.
your deputy can do it. Okay, John will be your
Great.
deputy.
Yeah, I'll be a
Okay.
deputy. I could be a Huckleberry.
Josh Belknap is my deputy.
He is a good actor.
Josh is, okay. All right, do we need an action item, or do we need a vote for that?
I'll second.
Yeah, it needs a
Okay.
second.
We have a motion and a
We have a
second.
motion and a second. Okay, Councilmember McBride.
Aye.
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 Okay, thank you, Chief. Have a good night.
Oh, you're leaving?
Oh, he's out of here. He's so gone. Okay,
I'm so hurt. Thought we were going to talk after.
thank you.
Yeah, he's like, boo, boo. Oh, hello.
Thanks, Chief. This is what I'm so grateful for in terms of just having a great council. I'm grateful that we can have these really great conversations and that we have public that care. So thank you for your comments. Thank you.
It's not personal.
Right.
No.
We got jobs to do, we have passion about it.
Absolutely, Chief.
That's the way it should be.
Absolutely. Thank you, sir. See you.
See, chief.
All right. Okay, council member reports. Does anyone have anything they would like to share now?
I'll say one thing real quick.
Yes, absolutely.
So
Councilman Bradley.
I am currently doing a little thing right now that Councilmember Blackham mentioned earlier, but I'm not going to talk about. But one thing I will talk about is I attended on Tuesday the City of Sunset's City Council meeting. And I will admit, and I admitted to them, that I didn't even know the City of Sunset existed prior to doing a certain thing that I'm doing. I know. And they were okay with it because I brought cookies. And anyhow, for me, it was so awesome to see how they're operating. But one of the discussions that was going on was that they're being forced to adopt Layton's dispatch system since the county is dropping their dispatch. And it's going to increase their cost. I think it was something like 5 times the amount that they are currently paying. And, it was just very cool to see, just like us. I mean, it was like watching in a mirror. A couple times when they said all in favor, I went, but very cool, and very cool to see too how much they're struggling with the idea of what do we do? How do we we turn to and charge all of our citizens X amount of money, and coverage may not be great. And so this difficult decision of, do we charge them the money without asking them, that we're facing right now, or do we charge them the money first asking them? It's just become very real to me that everybody's facing those decisions, and I think that threshold that we're discussing right now is a good thing. It's good to see that everybody's in this same position we're in right now, which is to say that everything's costing more money and none of us want to raise taxes. So anyway, it was a cool situation. I love Sunset.
Thank you for your share.
I got something.
Councilmember McBride.
Yeah, I just wanted to report this we finished up Kaysville University this last week, and for anyone who doesn't know what that is, Councilmember Blackham and I, along with a lot of city employees, took the last 7 weeks. Was it 7 weeks?
And Jason.
Jason, yeah. And we're able to go around and see every department and see all the workings of the city and how it works. And I just wanted to thank the city, all the departments for taking us and taking care of us and spending the time. We spent a lot of late nights going through every single department, and that does mean a lot to a lot of us to kind of see the back end of things and see how well everyone does work together. So,
Only thing I want to add to that is that the one thing that was really impressed upon me, which always has been, as long as I have been around Kaysville, which has been about 40 years since I've worked with them and done that, was, yeah, as a council, you see, we don't always give them what they want, but I can honestly tell you that I don't see that they hold a grudge with that. These people who work for Kaysville City are very passionate about their jobs, and they work very hard, and they do a great job to try to make the people who live in Kaysville not really even know they exist. And so that is very impressive to me, and I probably don't say it enough and thank them enough, but it's just so impressive to know. And it's starting from the department head all the way to the guy mowing lawns or whatever. They honestly care about what they're doing, they care about the city, and they work hard at what they do, and they're very passionate about it, and you can tell just by talking to them.
Thank you. Councilmember Hunt.
This is, as always, I'm going off from what everyone else is talking about for their reports. I usually do that. I, a while ago, got an email that gave some specific numbers of the kinds of cases and the number of cases that our youth court sees. So last year, they saw 37 cases, and they ranged from like criminal mischief, alcohol, drugs, shoplifting, all kinds of stuff. And I know we've talked about it before, and so the people here probably already know, but not that probably anyone's listening, but if anyone is listening that doesn't already know, the youth court is such a cool program. Like, that's 37 kids who maybe have made a dumb mistake or made some poor choices that have an opportunity to try to do better without it going on their record, and that's incredible. So just props to them. They come out on Wednesday nights and serve their time and or do service to kind of help out these kids. So I just wanted to share that.
It's a great program. Thank you. And you've been so involved with them as the liaison for that. We appreciate you. Councilmember Jackson or Councilmember, yeah.
I wasn't going to say anything, but since you called on me. Yeah, there's been a number of bills that we've been tracking as a city and working with the League of Cities and Towns, with the legislature, and happy to report that some of the bills that we've fought against or stood behind and promoted and wanted the league to kind of help us. We've had a lot of successes. A big one that I was paying attention to was an outdoor advertising bill. It comes up every year, but with the reconstruction of I-15 coming northbound, the outdoor advertising companies and billboards were trying to get a bill through that would mandate that if a billboard needs to be moved due to the construction, it would have to be moved within a mile of where it's taken down. And then also it would have allowed these companies to build up to 65 plus feet with absolutely no input from the city at all. they were trying to write into the bill that the companies would have to notify the city, but there was no teeth in it. And so these cities wouldn't have any ability to restrict that. And we have such beautiful mountains here. It was really important to me. And we responded to the league. A number of cities did. And the league went to bat, and they were able to kill that bill, which was fantastic. And there's a number of bills we could speak on about that, but just want to mention that highlight.
Thank you so much. Appreciate you. And it's fun bumping into everybody at the Capitol. I appreciate the fact that so many are so involved. I want to give a shout out to our representative, Ariel DeFay, who represents us in West Kaysville. She ran a micro schools bill for us. So last year, there was a micro school bill that was passed that said that in any zone in a city, 100 students could be located in a house, in an area, anywhere. Now, alternative schools are great. I think school choice is a wonderful thing for parents who want to do that. But we did have a couple of micro schools that came to the city and said, okay, we'd like to be in the middle of this neighborhood. We would like to be over in this neighborhood. And that's problematic to have up to 100 kids, potentially being dropped off and picked up multiple times a day in the middle of a neighborhood. And so reached out to the bill sponsor and said, was that the intention of the bill? And he said no. And so we reached out to our Representative House Member Ariel DeFay and said, will you run a bill to just tweak this, to make the adjustments, to make sure that cities and counties had the ability to put a little bit of guardrail around where, in residential areas where these types of schools could be located. So Jason jumped in, super appreciate him, and helped with language, and we had a lot of discussions back and forth. And Ariel called me last week, or was it this week? I think it was this week, and the bill had been circled. So it passed the House, and then it had been circled on the Senate calendar. And she said, Tammy, it's been circled. We've got to get this passed today, do something. And so I was able to go up and talk to the sponsor and said, can you make sure you uncircle this? Anyway, they got it passed through the Senate. And it's really great to be able to see representatives like Ariel work so hard for us. She opened this bill file last year. She was one of the first in line to get it done. It's not a hugely impactful bill to most people. There was no fiscal note with it. It didn't cost anything, but it matters to our city because now we have 2 great micro schools that have up to 100 kids in great areas, but they're not in the middle of a neighborhood. And so I think that's when government can really work to help us, when we're able to work together. So I just wanted to give her a shout out for that. She went the extra mile for us. And just all of the public comment and the input that we get from our residents, because there are so many things happening that it's really difficult to keep track of it all. But it really is helpful when people give us some good input. And I appreciate that, and I want to thank our residents for caring. Thank you for showing up and voicing your opinions. I also want to thank our staff. I had the opportunity to attend Kaysville University, I think the first year we did it. And it was fascinating. When I first became a council member, I didn't realize that traffic lights were controlled by the city. I never really thought about it. But they are. So things like that I just didn't know, it was really helpful to learn. So Jason, thank you for the great job you do as our city manager, Nick, Melinda. Anne Marie does so many things behind the scenes, and it's a thankless job for sure for her because she gets to listen to our meeting multiple times while she transcribes them. And I'm sorry, because we're all really long-winded. Anyway, so I appreciate everybody. Jason, do you have anything?
No, thanks, Mayor. I echo everything that we have such great people here, and it's humbling to see so many wonderful people, all of you, Mayor and Council, and I mean, gosh, there's so many examples I see every day of people that really deeply care about this city, and it's from the residents to the employees to all the elected officials. It's really humbling and amazing, so super cool. All right, on fun notes, March 13th is our budget work session. That's Friday of next week, 9 to 12. It's calendar invites went out, so you should have that on your calendar, but that'll be our kind of first official work session. We'll get into what the numbers are shaping up like, and I want to just compliment Marin and Parker, put in a ton of work, and I'm really excited because they're taking some different approaches, kind of retooling our approach to how we do the budget, how we look at things, and I think it's some really exciting things that we're doing, so I can't wait to share that with you. And we got the bids, or Cole and the school district got the bids back for the field house. They were quite a bit over budget initially. They've done a lot of work to try to value engineer, do things differently. not at the expense of quality or anything, but they've got those bids down or got those costs down. Bids came in a few days ago, slightly over. The number was going to be a cap of 21,739,000 or something like that, and it came in at 23,903,000. The good news is the city was committed to the lesser of 46% of the project, or 10.5 million. And so the school district is going to eat that extra little bit of cost. Okay. And so we'll be at still 10.5 million, but the project's going to move forward now. Expect to break ground next month and then be open by next fall of 27. So we're paying for about 44% of the project now due to that little bit of an overrun that the school is going to cover. Also, I just wanted to put a plug in for America 250 and the Freedom Week coming up.
Yes.
A lot of work's going on. Councilmember Jackson Mayer, the Freedom Week Committee, is that what you're calling yourself?
I think so.
Is meeting, and I know this year is a special year, as we keep on talking about with the 250th anniversary. And so just to put the plug out there, if anyone is interested, knows people that might want to put in a patriotic entry into the parade, we're already hearing that there's more coming this year than there has been in the past. We met a couple days ago with an equestrian group through the 4-H group, I guess, that's going to hopefully participate this year. We're going to get more animals, more costumes, more bands, more everything. So, but again, we need help. They need help, and so just spread that word out. We're trying to get it out. And yeah, I think that's it. Thank you, Mayor.
Well, and thank you. And Heidi Christensen, Jason's wife, because no one else would do it in the whole city, has agreed to chair the parade and the program again. And we are so grateful to her for that. Because literally we put it out on Facebook, we begged and pleaded, and that's a big job. And so we really appreciate Heidi for doing that.
I told her she had to do it one more year. She's a bicentennial baby, born in 1976.
Okay.
So it's like
This is her.
to do this.
Yes, this is her moment. That makes so much sense. You know, people have told me there's two kinds of people who live in Kaysville and people who wish they lived in Kaysville. And there's a reason for that, because we have great people in a great city. So everyone thank you. Okay, with that, would someone like to make a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Okay, thank you, everyone. Oh, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. All right.
Good job.
That got spicy.
Spicy,
That
didn't
got a
it?
little
She
spicy.
loves to get spicy with me. Huh? No, not at all.
Oh, no, that was awesome.
Really good.
Thanks, Mike.
No,
Thanks for saying
I was
that.
gonna say, why weren't you sticking up for me when people was coming at me? You kept like trying to root. We talked for like